Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, the DPWH chief orders the creation of a task force to probe alleged corruption in the agency. President Rodrigo Duterte expresses his trust and confidence to the Public Works and Highways Secretary despite anomalies and corruption allegations hounding the DPWH. And lawmakers questioning the number of Chinese workers in some of the government's infrastructure and Manila Bridge projects. Department of Public Works and Highways Secretary Mark Villar joins us live. A task force has been created to probe the alleged rampant corruption in the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH. This comes days after President Rodrigo Duterte called out the agency but cleared Villar of any allegations. Mr. Duterte claimed that no DPWH project starts without an illegal transaction. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have DPWH Secretary Mark Villar. Secretary Villar, welcome to The Source, and it's good to have you again, sir.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone watching The Source.
Let's start with a probe. You recently formed a team to investigate corruption within the Department of Public Works and Highways. Was this a result of the statement made by the President on the alleged corruption in the agency?
Yes, I took this as a challenge for the department to increase our efforts to weed out corruption. And that's why we formed a task force to directly address a lot of the complaints that we receive. And we assigned a senior official in the DPWH who isn't actually organic to the DPWH. He's a lawyer. His name is Assistant Secretary Meljan Versosa. And he'll be the one leading this charge against corruption within the department. So we'll really have a strong, strengthened internal monitoring system for our personnel in DPWH.
But let me ask you, Secretary Villar, why now? Why maybe 4 years later?
Well, actually, we've been taking a lot of steps in the past few years to curb the corruption. In terms of our monitoring system, one of the things that we wanted to address was in the past, there have been allegations of ghost projects. So that's one of the first things that we really took head on. We installed a monitoring system, a computerized monitoring system for all our projects. We call it the PCMA. This was not present before the term of the president. So this was implemented fully under the term of President Duterte. And we require that all projects have geotagging, meaning that there has to be a picture taken, which is confirmed via satellite. So when we have our reports when we have our project progress reports, we can see immediately what is the physical appearance of the project, and we'll know. And in fact, this has allowed us to blacklist as many as 30 contractors who have not been performing as expected. So I mean, it's yielded some good results, and now we want to further improve our internal enforcement function, which is why we created this task force.
So you would submit, sir, that it wasn't enough. What you did in the beginning in order to stamp out corruption and really take away, remove ghost projects and even contractors that partner with the DPWH. It wasn't enough before for you to be able to, or for you to really look into the creation of a task force now.
Well, it's we wanted to further strengthen based also on the president's statement. We also want to have a strengthened response to these reports of corruption. We want to further, so we want to take it a step further, and it's I think it's important that we do some institutional changes and this creation of a task force is something that we want to institutionalize, that within the department, we have a stronger internal auditing system that allows us to really, enforce the rules and really apply discipline to all members of the DPWH, all employees.
So right. And you told us that ASEC Versosa is not organic in the DPWH? Because I wanted to ask you about the composition, sir. What do you mean by him not being organic?
Oh, well, he's not. He was appointed. He was appointed during the term of the president. He's a lawyer, so he's not. He was not a regular employee of the DPWH, and so he's shown a lot of independence, and I know his character, and I'm confident that he can give us results very quickly in our for the task force.
Mm-hmm. But who appointed ASEC Versosa?
Of course, all appointments are from Malacanang. So this is obviously this is a appointment. Even though he's out of he's not organic to DPWH. He joined us relatively recently, and he's a lawyer, so I think he's well equipped to handle the investigation of these cases.
So let me clarify the question then. Was ASEC Versosa somebody you recommended?
Yes, of course. He's someone I recommended, and he's someone that, of course, all recommendations come with the scrutiny of the office of the president. So I think we have faith in him, and we have confidence that he can do the job.
Secretary, what do you say to possible concerns or questions on this, that the people within the DPWH are the same people investigating themselves? And then further on, can they actually come up with credible findings?
Well, that's why we formed this task force. I'll be the one who's really focusing on this. At the same time, we've assigned someone who's also not organic to the DPWH. So it's really it'll be something that's within the office, in the office of the secretary. We'll really put a increased focus on this kind of monitoring and the enforcement of the anti-corruption measures that we have in place. So I'm very confident that we can achieve good results very quickly.
Have they begun, and where do they actually start? Where do they begin?
Part of the committees are we call it the Stakeholder Relations Service, which basically compiles a lot of the complaints that we have, like from people who call into from people who call in the department. We also have complaints coming in from the hotline, the Malacanang hotline. So these are things that we have to vet, we have to investigate, and we have to move quickly to act on all these complaints of corruption. So that's something that we will work hard to further improve. And again, I think that with this creation, we can put our anti-corruption efforts on a higher level.
Do you have a timeline by which the task force should submit its initial findings?
Well, I expect in the next, I expect, right now, they're just compiling some reports in the next few weeks. And I expect very soon, maybe in the next month or so, we should already have some sort of results, some sort of observations, findings, recommendations. So in the very near future, we can expect that there will be some recommendations coming out of the task force.
I spoke to Secretary Roque about this yesterday, and I asked him about the task force that was formed within the DPWH. And also further on, I asked him if it would be possible at some time that the president may order an independent probe. And he said that it's not inconceivable that the president can order a separate probe on this. Is this something you welcome?
Yes, of course, we welcome anything that will increase transparency. Any help that anyone's willing to give is more than welcome. But of course, internally, we want to do everything that we possibly can to make sure that our efforts to stop corruption are further strengthened.
Were you shocked, Secretary Villar, when the president brought this up during his address to the nation? Sinasabi po niya wala sa taas, wala kay Secretary Villar ang problema nasa baba. Hindi gagalaw daw ang isang proyekto kung walang transaction or illegal transaction na nagaganap.
I'm challenged. As all, the president has challenged us to step up our efforts, and ako naman, I am ready to. I've always been willing and ready to step up to any of these challenges, whether it be the decongestion of EDSA, no matter how big, anti-corruption. I'm ready. I've always been ready and willing to step up to the challenges of our president.
Yeah, yeah, but of course, when corruption in the DPWH is talked about, syempre pupunta yun dun sa leader, which is of course the secretary. But it's always been said that, there's no problem with Secretary Villar. Sabi nga ni Secretary Roque, mas marami pang pera ang pamilya ni Villar kaysa sa DPWH.
Well, I'm thankful that they have for the faith that they've given me, and that's why I really want to do my best to make sure that the president is satisfied with what we're doing, with the work we put in, and it's a work in progress. Nothing's perfect when it comes to anything. When it comes to management or of any organization, it's never perfect. We're always trying to improve, and I think this kind of criticism is important also for us to improve further. It's a challenge, and after every challenge, we come out stronger and better. And that's the same thing that will happen here. We'll come out of this challenge and we'll improve our systems, and we'll improve our performance.
Was it, Secretary, a bigger challenge than you had expected being Secretary of the Department of Public Works and Highways, or was it what you thought it would be?
I guess it's a big challenge. Maybe I guess you never realize how the gravity of the job, but you can never really, I guess, predict everything. But for me, what I know is that even though as challenging as it may be, it's worth it because you can see the results speak for themselves. We know that I know that the decongestion of EDSA is something that is at hand. I see the projects that we have, some of which are some of which are the longest bridges that have ever been built, bypass roads across the country, the Luzon Spine Expressway network. It's hard. It's a really hard job, very difficult job. But what I can say is, in the end, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it because this is something that generations, my children, their children, will look back and they'll be
Benefit from.
thankful for this legacy.
All right. We're going to talk about claims of that Chinese workers actually form a big percentage of some of the projects involved in the government's infrastructure projects. This is The Source on CNN. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our guest today, DPWH Secretary Mark Villar. Secretary Villar, I want to briefly touch on the budget. I also spoke to Senator Ping Lacson, and he said that there were questions on the DPWH budget, such as lump sums, etc. But there was an addendum passed sometime, I believe, past August 25, which is September 7 to be exact. It was actually late because this was supposed to be submitted 30 days after Congress opens. But be that as it may, he asked you a question, sir. Ang sabi po niya, nagtataka siya why the funds for the national projects decreased while the funds for local projects actually increased. And then he went on, I believe, to ask, were lawmakers responsible for this, or was this the doing of the DPWH? How do you respond to that, sir?
Well, two things. First, when you say local projects, there are local projects that do have national purposes. I'll give you an example. We have local projects, local roads that lead to airports. We have local roads that lead to tourism sites. We have local roads that are also for trade and industry. So, even though they're local roads, they can serve national purposes. So, we are just because it's a local road doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a priority. That's why we created convergence programs precisely to identify. Secondly, these ultimately the budget is a legislative function to pass the budget, and of course this is it's a very transparent process. We submit our recommendations to Congress, and congressmen can approve or not to approve. They can give their comments. They can make changes. And that's just part of the budgetary process. So, ultimately these concerns, we'll do our best to answer all their concerns. And if they feel that there are certain aspects of the budget that are not, they feel that they have better ideas, or, that's the discretion of Congress, and we respect that.
There were apparently some lawmakers who told Senator Lacson that there was a delay in the submission of the budget of the DPWH because of haggling of some lawmakers under the former leadership. Can you respond to this, sir? Is there any truth to this?
What happened is what happened was basically for us, the DBM submits to us a ceiling, and based on that ceiling, we craft a budget um, that we feel is consistent with our objectives. Now, when we received the ceiling, we just asked for additional time in order for us to, because you're talking about thousands of items, and we want to make sure, of course, we know that we don't want people to be saying that there are lump sums, so we try to be as precise as possible when we take our time to identify each project piece by piece. And this is part of transparency. So all this was done in coordination with the DBM. If they grant us, they grant us an extension. That's because because of the voluminous nature of our in our efforts to make it as transparent and as specific as possible. That's the reason why sometimes like we if we need to ask for extension, we're granted an extension. So that's just part of the budgetary process, and it's done expressly for the purpose of having a more specific and a more transparent budget.
But did you feel, or was there any pressure, sir, from any lawmaker regarding the budget, especially definitely on their districts?
In the course of every district representative, people, whether it can be mayors, it can be regular people, it can be district representatives, everyone can give us suggestions and receive suggestions from many people regarding what project. We receive letters to fix various infrastructure projects. So I don't want to single out any particular. Everyone, we get suggestions from local officials, from
Yeah.
legislators. So practically everyone gives us suggestions, and we take this into account and we analyze it to see if it's how meritorious it is, and we prioritize those that are consistent with the national objectives.
Pero hindi ho kayo na pressure.
No, the pressure. Everything that we do is in line with. We make sure that it's in line with our national objectives. Of course, people, if you're from a certain district, of course you want help in a certain district. If there's some problems that occur, of course you push for where you live. That's normal. If residents from a certain area push for a project in their district, I don't think that's there's anything wrong with that. But we try to be as responsive as possible. I mean, that's part of our job. We want to respond to as many people in as many areas as possible. So that's part of the budgetary process, and I think that's okay to ask if people give suggestions. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Chinese workers, sir, I'm going to shift topics now. Sabi po ni Yusek Sadain, 31% of the workers of the Estrella Pantaleon Bridge are Chinese, 69% are Filipinos. Doon po sa Binondo, Intramuros, 55% Filipinos and 45% Chinese workers. Please explain to us why there is a big percentage of Chinese workers in these two bridges that I had mentioned, sir.
Well, to begin with, if you look at in totality, if you look at the presence of, there's really, let's not. I think I just want to distance from this perception that there are a lot of Chinese workers. There's only Chinese workers in very few in several projects relative to tens of thousands of projects across the country. And even there, in those projects, there are grant projects, and even in those projects, a majority are still Filipino. So the presence of Chinese workers is very minimal, very very minimal, and they're only there because there are certain technologies that we don't have. We don't have a high level of expertise yet, so they're there to guide us. Technology transfer is important in infrastructure. There are a lot of best practices from around the world. There's constantly new technologies. It's very important for us also to be open to these new technologies. And sometimes these would require, the specialization of foreign workers. So yes, there are some specialists. For instance, at Estrella Pantaleon Bridge, there's actually 75% of the workers are Filipino, but there are certain specialists from China because of this new travel informed technology that they're using. So it's not. I mean, I don't. There's no big influx of Chinese workers. There are just some specialists for very specific, very few projects that require a new technology that they're helping us with the technology transfer. So that's the situation.
But Secretary, the Binondo Intramuros Bridge is 55% Filipino and 45% Chinese. So that would be a ratio of 1:1.
Well, it depends on what portion. No, but in the other one, the Estrella Pantaleon, it's 75-25. It really depends on what stage. There's certain stages of construction that require more manual labor, and there are certain stages of construction that are more technical in nature. So when it comes to, let's say, these, for instance, assembling the traveling forms, for assembling certain pieces of the project, that would require more specialization. But once you get to the manual labor, the more then it shifts. Then it becomes more Filipino work. But it's different stages of different projects. But at this point, if you look at the Estrella Pantaleon, it's overwhelming majority Filipino, and these are very few projects. I don't think there's anything we shouldn't be too scared about the influx of. There's no influx. It's just a few in certain special cases. There are specialists that are being used to help our projects. But relative to the size and scope of all the projects in the DP, these are very minimal.
I guess it comes to four, sir, because of the unemployment rate, number one. And that I believe Senator Pangilinan also said that there's been a drop of 30% in employment, excuse me, sir, in the construction industry. So one could probably immediately think, sayang naman yung mga trabahong yon kasi pwedeng mapunta sa mga Pilipino na unemployed, walang trabaho ngayon. Would you even, is there even an opportunity, or do you feel that these itong pong dalawang bridge na to, kailangan pang tingnan possibly to employ more Filipinos, or you're fine with this with the status right now?
I've already issued a directive that I required that as much as possible, we should always prioritize Filipino workers. That's always been the policy of this department. That's always been the policy of this administration. When it comes, like for instance, these two, it only in these two projects, which are grant projects, which are donated anyway, but from China. So they're not they're free. They're at no cost to government. There's just certain technologies that we're not yet accustomed with. But in the long term, once we adopt these technologies, it'll create more employment. Eventually. I think that it's important to note that it's always been our policy, and it still is. I've even issued an order saying that in all our projects, let us go out of our way to make sure that we create as many jobs, many labor-intensive jobs as possible. So that's really the direction of this administration, and we will continue to do so to push that there's job creation. In fact, the whole build is one of the benefits that we always cite is the job creation. It creates millions of jobs because almost 30% of every project is labor costs. So that's a direct translation. At the same time, the projects yield benefits, their investments for long-term development in the country.
We need to take another short break. We're going to talk about the projects that will be completed soon and even in 2022. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. All right, we're back with the Secretary Villar. Secretary, let's talk about some of these projects that will open. One, of course, in December. Let's start with this, the Skyway, Stage 3. Maganda po ito. Imagine that, connecting SLEX and NLEX.
Yes, we're excited about that. That's part of the President's EDSA decongestion program. That's one of the projects that can take away as much as 50,000. It's a joint venture that the government has with San Miguel Corporation, and we've been working hand in hand with them for the past 3 years, helping them with the right of way and helping them expedite the construction. And now I think we're at it's at hand. We're only a month or so away, and finally, after so many presidents, so many decades, after EDSA, NLEX, and SLEX will finally be connected.
That's very exciting, sir. And you were telling me before we went on air, how long will it take to actually cross SLEX to NLEX?
Yes. We've tried from Muntinlupa, for instance, from Muntinlupa to NLEX. It takes only 35 minutes using the Skyway. From Makati to NLEX, only 15 to 20 minutes. And this is in comparison kung galing ka sa Makati dati, abot ka ng 1 oras kalahati. Pag rush hour, baka umabot ka pa ng 2 oras. But now, 15 to 20 minutes. So it's really a game changer, this project that we're very excited about. And I think it's a good example of what can be accomplished when the private and public sector come together to finish these massive infrastructure projects.
And let's talk about this very quickly, sir. The Tagaytay bypass road. Tell us more about this.
Yes, actually, I was there the other day to open a small portion of this road. And I think, we know sa Tagaytay, minsan na nakaka-traffic sa main road. And I think the nice thing about this road is that it's a good example of our new directive, which is to include bike lanes in our new road opening. So it's a 4-lane road with independent bike lane that's segregated from the main road. So now those who going, if you're in Tagaytay area, you can use this road. You can going up all the way up to almost Alfonso, and you can actually bike it. So it's nice. It's rolling terrain, and I think it's a good example of the kind of infrastructure that we're promoting now, which includes these environment friendly pedestrian and bike lanes.
Yeah, that's very interesting, sir, because when you actually go to Tagaytay or Cavite or Batangas, madami pong nagbabike talaga dyan. This will be a very welcome development to them as well. Any more we should look forward to, Secretary?
Yes, part of the decongestion, aside from the Skyway, there's also the bridges across the Pasig River. In the first quarter of next year, we can expect that the BGC, the Santa Monica Lawton Bridge will be finished. That's connecting Pasig to Makati and Taguig. We'll also be expecting the Estrella Pantaleon Bridge to be finished early next year, which will connect Mandaluyong to Makati. And then early next year, the other major projects include the Central Luzon Link Expressway. We have major projects across the country, major bypass roads almost in every region that will be finished next year. So I mean, there's just so much. And next year, even a new segment of Calax will be open next year. So we'll be opening constantly the extension to the Skyway going south. The people can expect. Recently, we opened the Harbor Link, so now the trucks coming from the port go directly to NLEX. It's all part of a master plan. That the president has conceptualized, and I think now in the next year, people will really start feeling we've suffered through the construction period, and now is the time to really feel the effects of all the projects that were started early in this administration.
DPWH Secretary Mark Villar. Sir, I want to thank you for your time, and of course, good luck to you, and we look forward to all these other developments, especially next year. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.